The Australian band AC/DC in fact supported Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow twice, in 1976 and 1978. Before taking them on tour, Rainbow didn't know much about AC/DC. They just knew that they were very hot, very dated, and people loved their performances. By that time, AC/DC was already very popular in Australia. Rainbow thought, let's take these guys on tour with us. They will help us sell more tickets. In those days, Rainbow was the biggest and loudest rock band in the world, so they were not afraid of these young Aussie lads at all. According to Ronnie James Dio, AC/DC were not Ritchie Blackmore's fanboys, and they were not impressed a bit by touring with Rainbow. They gave all their energy on stage, especially Angus Young, who is the hardest working guitar player in rock and roll music world, which what they believed at that time. They didn't hang out with Rainbow, they didn't stay to see Rainbow, and as soon as they were done with their performance, AC/DC left the place and went to the next city. Dio recalls that AC/DC were pretty tough because they had rough times in Australia and had to fight for everything. The first time Dio saw Malcolm Young was when Malcolm walked into their dressing room looking for a beer because AC/DC drank their beer in 5 minutes. He didn't even think to say hello. He just said, "Where's the beer?" Jimmy Bain muttered something. The next moment, Jimmy was about to sit down and Malcolm pulled the chair from under him. Dio recalled that Bon Scott was one of the toughest guys he'd ever met. Dio admired Bon Scott's attitude, which Dio also had. Never take crap from anybody. In Australia, like in New York, people didn't take too well to long-haired rock and roll guys. So when AC/DC played in bars in Australia, they were often attacked by local people and usually had to jump out of windows. So they had to learn to stand up for themselves. Dio once saw Bon Scott beating up a few people without reservations at all. Bon used to jump into the audience and fight, and he didn't care if he came back all bloodied up. He just had that attitude, don't give me crap, or I'll come after you. Dio told that Bon was really a great guy and a badass. He had the pleasure of chatting with Bon a few times, and Bon was very friendly to Ronnie. By the end of the tour, Bon caught a cold and asked Dio's attitude on how to make it through the rest of the tour. And Dio explained, to Bon what to do, and Bon was very grateful. What a brilliant guy, Dio recalls. Ronnie James Dio was actually on two tours with the Aussie Rockers in 1976 and 1978, while Tony Carey toured with AC/DC only once in 1976. Tony Carey recalls spending some good time with AC/DC on the road. Jimmy Bain was also there. They drank some whiskey and had fun with the Australian rockers. Bon liked to tell funny stories and was a great guy. Tony remembers that Bon used to have clashes with his wife about having a habit of farting too much in bed. So, now according to Ronnie James Dio, Ritchie Blackmore thought he made a big mistake of taking AC/DC on tour as their warm-up band because Rainbow just couldn't keep up with them. Dio told AC/DC that they blew them off the stage every night. He and Cozy Powell stood backstage watching and thinking, wow, how can we perform after that? We were knocked out. We loved so much what they did. Dio confessed that AC/DC were heroes to the crowd. They had everything to be successful, and it was clear that they would achieve a lot. According to Tony Carey, he knew that AC/DC were getting big, but the key to success was longevity. Unfortunately, Bon Scott didn't stand a test of success and left too soon. But AC/DC didn't give up. They found Brian and kept on going. Tony regrets that Rainbow eventually didn't become really huge like AC/DC. He said, I honestly expected us to become superstars, but our banjo lover fired all the great musicians. While Rainbow got relative good commercial success, it failed to become as huge as AC/DC, Van Halen, or Ozzy. So Ritchie Blackmore decided to go back to Deep Purple Mark II, which got great commercial success back in the early 70s. They reformed Deep Purple, and they had a chance to become just as big as AC/DC or Van Halen. So when Ritchie Blackmore reformed Deep Purple Mark II and they are working on their new album Perfect Strangers, Ritchie commented, "I've always admired AC/DC. I don't like them particularly as a band, but they've stuck steadfastly to their own brand of straightforward music through thick and thin. To my mind, when they first started out, AC/DC sounded incredibly dated. But then suddenly the rock and roll turned full circle and the band took off. And that was just great. They kept hanging on to their principles until the right time came along. In a way, you can draw a parallel between Purple and AC/DC. We're just going to go out and do what we're best known for."